This is the part 4 of .NET Core interview series. In this part, we will discuss questions about middleware in .NET Core. So let's see what are the questions. What is middleware in ASP.NET Core? How ASP.NET Core middleware is different from HTTP modules in ASP.NET Web Forms? What is custom middleware? How to add custom middleware in ASP.NET Core? What is request delegate? What is run method? What is use method? What is map method? So let's jump into the first question. What is middleware in ASP.NET Core? As you can see here inside the configure method, we are calling several components like isDevelopment, use static files, use routing, use authorization, and at last the use endpoints. All these methods are nothing else but middlewares only. So now you know these are the middlewares provided by the .NET Core framework. A middleware is nothing but a component or class that is executed on every request in the ASP.NET Core application. So all these methods inside the configure are middlewares and they will execute on every request. We can set up the middleware in ASP.NET using the configure method of our startup class. Now suppose a user will request a simple HTML page from outside the request. We'll first check isDevelopment, then use static files, and then a short circuit will happen, and rest of the middlewares like use authorization and use endpoint will not be executed. That is we call short circuit in middleware. Why it happened? Because a HTML page will not require the use routing and use authorization. It will just finish here at the use static files. So this is how the middleware normally executes. Now let's see next question on middleware. How ASP.NET Core middleware is different from HTTP module? This is not a very important question, but if you are aware about ASP.NET Web Forms, then you know that we have HTTP modules in the ASP.NET Web Forms. Middleware is almost behaves similar to HTTP module as they both are the part of the request pipeline. So middlewares are basically a set of blocks which will execute for every request. As shown in the diagram, all these middlewares are provided by the .NET Core framework, like use static files, use routing, use authorization, all these. But developer can also create their own middlewares, which we call custom middlewares. In next question, we will discuss about custom middlewares. What is custom middleware? Here in the diagram you can see there are middlewares which are provided by .NET Core framework, like for static files, for routing, for cores, for authentication, for authorization. These are provided by the .NET Core framework. Similar to that, a developer can also add their own custom middleware at the end of the request pipeline. Here, like this, shown here, custom middlewares inside the configure method only of a startup class. So that is what we call custom middlewares, which are developed by the developer themselves. They are not provided by the .NET Core framework. In the next question, we will see how to add custom middleware in .NET Core. How to add custom middleware in ASP.NET Core. Now to add a custom middleware, one just have to right click on the project and you can add middleware class file like any other class file in the project. You can select this middleware class and add to your own project. When you will add the template in your project, here you can see the code which is automatically generated. Do not worry about the request delegate thing here, which we will discuss in another question, but just focus on this invoke method. Invoke method here, you can inside this invoke method and before this return statement, you can add your logic which you want to place in your middleware. Now, if you want to understand how it is working, then you can see the use custom middleware is the extension method, which is extending the iApplicationBuilder class with this keyword. I will cover the extension method in C# course, but you explore it on Google, as it is very important question from interview perspective. But that is not a part of the .NET Core series. Then inside the extension method, we will call this custom middleware class, and then at last we will add this middleware extension method in the configure method in the startup class. Okay, so here you can see the use custom middleware. So if I will, so this is the use custom middleware. The code all is written here inside the invoke before the return statement, and here you will add at this line use custom middleware extension method at the end of the configure method. This is how you can add your own middleware class in your project. Next question is, what is request delegate in .NET Core? Request delegates handle each HTTP request and are used to build a request pipeline by using run, map, and use extension methods. Let's see the diagram. In the diagram, you can see we have three middlewares, middleware 1, 2, and 3. We want to execute them one by one. And then at middleware 3, we want to stop the execution and send the response back to middleware 2 and then middleware 1. So how we will achieve this? So in middleware 1 and 2, we will use the use method, which is basically used when there is a need to execute next method of the next middleware. So we will discuss all these methods separately in different questions. So we will start with the first method of the request delegate, which is use method. What is use method? Use method will execute next middleware in sequence. Let's see an example. Here inside the configure method, we are calling use method and then run method. Okay. If you see the output, both lines are printed from both the methods. Hello from first delegate and hello from second middleware. So basically, use method will pass the control to the next method, which is the run method. So that is how use method works. It will run itself and then it will pass the control to the next middleware to run, which is run method here. So here in the configure method, if I will talk about the live example of .NET Core framework, you can see we are using use method like use static files, use routing, use authorization, use endpoints. So all of these methods are using use keyword. The reason is because they will let the next middleware to execute. So that is the definition of use method. It will execute the next middleware in sequence. Now let's see the run method in next question. What is run method? Run method will terminate the chain. So where use method will execute the next middleware, the run method will not execute the next middleware. It will terminate the chain. It will finish the chain. No other middleware method will run after this if you are using run method. It should be placed at the end of the pipeline, because after that no method will be executed. Let's see one example. Here inside the configure method, we are calling first run method and then again run method. Now if you will see the output, only the first run method has been executed. The second run method never executed, because the run method will terminate the chain here itself. That is the reason run method should be placed at the end of any pipeline, because after that there is nothing going to execute. I hope now you can easily already understood what is the difference between use and run method. Now the last one is map method, which we will discuss now. What is map method? Map method will execute middleware if path requested by users equal path provided in parameter. Let's try to understand with the help of an example this. So basically the role of the URL is important here, the request URL, because based on the URL only the mapping will happen. So let's see the example. Here inside the configure method, you can see first we are using use method, which will execute and then pass it to the next method, which is then a map method. Now this map method will execute if authorization parameter is present in the request URL. If auth is not present in the request URL, then this method will not be executed. So let's see both the cases. So if the auth is present, if here in the screenshot you can see auth in the URL, request URL. So if this is the URL, then the first statement will be printed, and then the second statement, new branch for auth from here, will also be printed because auth is present in the URL. But in the second case, if auth is not present in the URL, then the second line will not be printed because it will not be executed, because map method will only execute if auth is present in the URL, and that is not is the case of second case auth is not present, therefore only one line will be executed. So with this we know what is map method. So although map method is not as important as use and run method, but yes, one should know this method, as sometimes we have to use this method in our live applications. So that is all about this part. In next part we will cover some more questions, some more important questions in .NET Core.